So I was working on the news. I came across this fascinating story about one bank employee in Mumbai who walked out of the bank with 122 crore rupees in cash over a period of a couple of years, and no one noticed. And I was like, what? How is that possible? Because banks will hunt you down if you miss one EMI. So how is it that this bank did not notice that 122 crore rupees went missing? So this is the really quick story. So this is how it happened, right? So Valentine's Day was a really tough day for the customers of the New India Co-operative Bank, which is a Maharashtra based bank. They woke up to the news that the Reserve Bank of India had effectively superseded the bank, which basically means that the RBI had decided to take over the bank and run it for the next 12 months, and also basically said that your accounts were frozen, that you couldn't access your money if you had put money in that bank. Now the RBI said that there were poor governance standards and irregularities in lending, and that was the problem. But really for the people who had put their money either in fixed deposits or in their bank accounts, they were suddenly stopped from withdrawing any money, and that is, the worst possible nightmare when you're a banking customer. Now, what the RBI also did is that it appointed Shrikant, who is the ex-Chief General Manager of State Bank of India, as the new administrator with a team of advisors. And what happened almost immediately is that hundreds of account holders landed up at the, at the branches, Meera Road branch. They were trying to get money out of their accounts. They couldn't get money out of their accounts. Now, this sounds like a dull sort of financial story, but it's not. It got interesting really quickly. So what happened when people started looking at this closely is that they noticed that the New India Cooperative Bank had, for the last 2 years before that, filed losses, and they were showing a lot of losses in their books. So in 2024, there was a loss of about 22 crore rupees, and the year before that a loss of close to 30 crore rupees. But the bank was holding deposits of more than 2,400 crore rupees, and it had lent 1,100 crore rupees. So if you look at it, basically this is not a bank that should be going into losses. So something was wrong. Either there was some sort of fraud going on, or they had basically lent to all the wrong people and they were not able to recover that money. So the investigation started. And on the 12th of February, apparently, the RBI inspection discovered discrepancies in the bank's cash records. And they found that from the Prabhadevi branch, there was 112 crore rupees that was missing. Cash was missing. And from the Goregaon branch, 10 crore rupees was missing. So they were like, okay, so what's going on? Now, while investigating this, one Hitesh Mehta, who's a bank general manager and an account head, came under the scanner. They started investigating him, and they found out that he had been stealing money for 12 years, between 2019 and 2025, through the whole COVID period and after that. RBI officials discovered missing cash, and when they questioned senior bank officials, Mehta actually confessed that this is what he had done, and then he took the RBI officials to different locations and recovered about 50 lakh of the stolen money out of the total 122 crore rupees that he had stolen. The police then arrested him. Now, this is what we understand from what had happened. Hitesh Mehta was a general manager at the bank, but he was responsible for handling the cash at the Prabhadevi and the Goregaon branches, and he was like a year away from retirement. He'd been in that bank since 1988, and according to a report by the Hindustan Times, he would keep saying that he would ask for the money, saying it has to be sent to the other branch. And the money would never reach that other branch. So he kept taking out apparently at 50 lakhs at a time, and it would not actually reach that other branch. He had instructed 2 staff members to keep handing over 50 lakh rupees to an individual that he had designated. This is what the police has said. So basically he was telling these 2 employees कि कोई आएगा लेने के लिए उनको 50 लाख रुपए दे देना. So he would keep handing over 50 lakh rupees at a time, and through this managed to take away 122 crore rupees. Now he's also admitted to taking cash from both of these branches and handing it to one Dharmesh Pan, who helped him actually route the money into a real estate company. So Dharmesh has said that he's taken 70 crore rupees, and Mehta has apparently given another 40 crore rupees to another individual. But even if you consider that, is it possible for for someone to actually take away 122 crore rupees and for it to not go noticed at all? Like there was no audit, nobody was counting the money, nobody was checking. So according to the Hindustan Times, also on February 21st, the police have arrested the former CEO of the bank, one Abhimanyu Bhuvan, who has been accused of involvement in this particular ciphering exercise. So apparently what the police are now saying is that the CEO was aware that this individual, this general manager, was taking money out, and basically it's likely that he was receiving a portion of the kickback. So he was taking some of, he was on the take in order to basically turn a blind eye towards what was happening. So this is what has happened. It brings me back to my first question, like how come audits did not catch this? How is it that so much money was missing and nobody was checking in the bank? Now, one official has said that considering the bank situation over 2 years, we're trying to figure out misappropriation of funds. We've recorded statements, while cash as per the book shows that 138 crore is missing. In this particular individual, they have found 122 crores. They're figuring out where that last portion is gone as well. And also apparently they've recorded a statement of one Abhishek Deshmukh, who is a partner at the CA firm that was auditing the bank, to find out why the audits have not thrown up any any details. So was the CA firm also on the take, and that is why they looked the other way. There's another interesting thing that has popped up, which is that apparently employees of this bank, or former employees of the bank, wrote to the RBI a couple of years ago and described the situation, and they said that the bank's management is in trouble and there are a lot of non-performing assets. Loans are being handed out to people who should not be getting loans, and this is an issue. Now this is being verified at this point by the police, and the RBI has not confirmed receiving such a letter. Nevertheless, no action was taken. If such a letter was written, there was no action taken on it. And of course there has to be a Bollywood angle to everything. So there's a Preeti Zinta Bollywood angle that has now come up, where apparently she was one of the people who received a loan of 18 crore rupees, and it was accused that she had not paid it back. Now who has accused her? The Congress party in Kerala, who said that basically she was posting positive things about the BJP, and in return she was given an 18 crore rupee loan that was written off, and now the bank has collapsed. So they blamed the entire collapse of the bank on Preeti Zinta, who has then apparently called it fake news and said that on the record she has fully paid back that loan over 10 years ago. So she's denied that. But it brings us back to the point of the fact that there are thousands of customers whose bank accounts are currently frozen. They don't have access to their money. They don't have access to their fixed deposits. It's very likely that they have events at home that require money. You have to pay school fees. You have to pay rent. You have to pay salaries. Maybe there's a wedding. There's someone is in hospital. There are various things for which you need to constantly access your funds. And when your funds are frozen in this manner, it makes things really difficult. So why is it? Remember, this is not the first time we're hearing it. We had heard about also the Punjab Maharashtra Co-operative Bank. You'll remember this was in 2019, and I remember that story very clearly because the RBI had taken similar action because 6,500 crore rupees had gone off in bad loans, and the bank collapsed and people couldn't get their money back, and I think that battle continues. But why is it, and we had talked about it then also, why is it that these cooperative banks are so are constantly vulnerable to this sort of fraud? So cooperative banks actually come under both the RBI and what is called a register of cooperative societies. So there are two regulators, and there are gaps between these two regulators, and there's certain inefficiency. Also, the RBI doesn't have as clear a run of regulation over these banks as it does on the rest of the banks, the public sector, private sector banks, and that is a problem. And also these cooperative banks are normally just run as fiefdoms by local politicians who use it to access money whenever they want to. They use it to give loans to their friends or people who are of influence without really checking their creditworthiness, and sometimes they just tell the manager to tell the bank to write off those loans without getting paid back, and that's a huge problem. Now after the Punjab Maharashtra Cooperative Bank problem had come up, where that 6,500 crore rupees went missing, there was a Banking Regulation Amendment Act that was worked on in 2020 that gave the RBI larger powers to audit and supervise, to remove board members, to regulate mergers and reconstruction, but somehow it still has not fully done the job. Otherwise we wouldn't be having this conversation today. And we must also remember that so you'd think that, okay, just bank with a private bank, right? Why do we need these cooperative banks? The cooperative banks were actually started because the private banks or your PSUs were not available to the farmers, to rural India, to places where people really need to borrow or need to be encouraged to save. The idea was to reduce the dependency on money lenders. And so to provide basically loans to farmers for fertilizers and for farm equipment and small traders and shopkeepers, it was decided that you create a cooperative where everybody comes together, pools your money, and you lend that money out. That was like a very base example of what a cooperative bank is. A group of people, either in a particular village or who are tied together because they're part of the same community, will pool all of their money together and they will start a bank and they will use that money to give loans at a slightly lower interest rate. Or if you give deposits, they give you a slightly higher interest rate, which is the motivation why people keep their money in these banks. It's not as tightly regulated as the bigger banks, but the bigger banks are not available to bank in the places where these banks tend to function. And so a lot of, unfortunately, poor people tend to bank with cooperative banks. And as it happens, when people are banking, you have politicians who take control and who use the banks to sort of help themselves to it. It's a cookie jar. But fundamentally, it brings us back to the question of regulation and the RBI, which has come under question quite a bit. I mean, remember, there have been questions raised about whether or not SEBI is doing its job well, but is the RBI doing its job? Why is it that after the PMC bank collapse that happened in 2019, we're having this conversation again today, which means that in spite of writing a new law and giving the RBI, enough jurisdiction, and the possibility of employees writing a letter to the RBI saying, hey, there's something wrong with this bank, you need to look at it, nothing got done. And now, after the horses have bolted, you're locking the doors. And who's getting stuck? People, regular people whose money is in that bank. Worst nightmare for anyone to wake up in the morning and realize that you cannot access the money in your own account, which is your money that you've worked hard for and that you've paid taxes on. I mean, again, we see that the regular Indian who's working and paying taxes and following the law is at the mercy of powerful politicians and their powerful friends. Leave me your comment if you think that this entire banking sector needs a relook at and what our rights really are as customers of the banking sector. Also, please like, share, subscribe and sign up for our membership as well on YouTube. Thanks for watching.